Hey everybody, happy Star Wars Day. Happy Star Wars Day. Can you believe it? Ah, this is wild. Got my shirt on, ready to go. Ryan will be here in just a minute. Got a fun stream today. We're gonna be kind of casual. Maybe it's an Ask Me Anything kind of day, so it'll be kind of fun. Join us if you're around. Team replay, live, however you'd like it. Maybe we should have some music. Should we have some music? Let's see. Let me see what kind of music I got queued up for all of you. I think I've got some sound effects. Let's see what kind of music I got for you. I got sound effects to your heart's content. But let's see. We got some music. Well, I gotta put that into the stream, don't I? Here. There. There, I'll put some music in for everybody. All right. Get a little background music going. Just keep that nice and low. Let me know if it's too loud for everybody. Ah, so good to be here. Went to work this morning, had my cosplay on. That was super fun. Ryan should be here in just a minute. We'll get the chat up. Let me know. Happy Star Wars Day. Here we go.
Hey, my friend.
There he is. How you doing?
Hey, I'm sorry about that.
It's all good. No worries. We are live, my man. Ah, this is good. Happy Star Wars
Thanks,
Day.
everybody. Happy Star Wars Day to you. May the 4th be with you.
Got my hold on, get off camera there. There's my R2D2.
Oh,
May the
dude,
4th.
you're already set, man.
Oh,
That's
you missed it.
awesome.
I went to so we did an on-site thing today and for work. It was our all hands.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I went to San Jose because I don't usually go to the office. So I came in and I actually wore my full cosplay today. So I drove into San
that's
Jose
funny.
with my full cosplay on, and everyone's like, who had tempted me and said, "Wait, are you gonna do it?" And I showed up. They're like, "You did it!" I'm like, "Yes, I did."
Good on you, man. I'm like, one, if you haven't had a chance yet to see all of the work that Jeff has put into his cosplay is like unbelievable. The thing that I like the most, Jeff, and maybe you could even talk about this, is you actually built like some. I don't know if they're bracers or they're gauntlets, but you built them, I think, up to your elbow, but then had to readjust that because they were actually too. It's like a legitimate thing that will happen when you're doing this, is that you realize stuff about like,
Yes.
oh, wait a second, you can draw that, but then it actually, it affects your ability as a human.
It does. Yes, actually, I'll show you what it was inspired by, and then I'll explain what I did. So this book, oh, sorry. God, there's a crack in my floor that my chair keeps getting caught in, so I can't wheel my chair. This book came out last year. This is the Art of the High Republic came out. It's a very
Nice.
thick hardcover book. If anybody watching, if you don't have it, you should pick this book up. It is gorgeous. It's basically how Project Luminous came up with, and their artists came up with all the designs for all the characters in the comic books and other places for all the High Republic. Anyway, on the front cover here, you'll see, let me lower my mic, you'll see a person right here. This is Stellan Gios,
So cool.
one of the main characters, and you can see his bracers right there. So mine were loosely inspired by this. But yes, like you said, if you look at that, you can see a piece on the back of his hand that kind of folds underneath the bracer. And you're like, oh yeah, it's like a turtle shell or something. It's fantastic. Yeah, and that does not actually work in real life. It just doesn't. So I made them, and they went down to like just behind my wrist bone here, and just about the elbow. And then as soon as you put it on, I'm like, oh man, it looks really cool. And then go to bend your wrist stops because it hits it. Or if you go to bend your arm back, it catches right in your joint. And so it was all kind of like,
Oh my
I stand
gosh.
there and just go, okay, this is it. That's about as far as I can bend my arm. I'm like, well, okay. So I had to sit back and like draw with a Sharpie on it, and then go back with scissors and cut, and then reform more foam that is painted in the curve. And so this weekend, or before Saturday, before going to Free Comic Book Day, where I'm going to dress up again, I'm actually going to remake the whole thing, but I'm going to cut them shorter. So they'll only be like 6 inches long, just in the middle, not the whole. I mean, the whole arm piece looks good, but it is completely impractical. And that's, yes, one of the things you learn when you're doing cosplay is sometimes those visuals just don't actually work when you try to wear them.
Well, I gotta ask you, Jeff, of all of the things that you've built, what was like the hardest so far of of everything. I mean, I feel like you've been able to source in some things. Like I saw, like and I think you might have said this. Like you brought in a Ren Fair shirt.
Yes.
But like, what of all of the things that you've been building for your cosplay, what's been the hardest?
Oh, that is a great question. So some context for everyone watching. I taught myself to sew so that I could make the cosplay. So I had never sewn before. I mean, yes, I have a sewing kit, and I've done hand stitching to do some basic fixes on things, but I was never very good at it. It was more of like out of necessity. If you needed to do a button or fix a small hem, I could probably do a bit of it, and it'll be okay for a while. But I bought a sewing machine, and I'm like, I'm going to teach myself to do this. The hardest, I would say, the hardest one so far has been I'm just calling them loosely the tabard. So I don't know if these are the appropriate names, but most people are probably used to like the Obi-Wan style classic Jedi, where it's like a shirt that folds over each other, like one or two shirts that folds over each other, and then you've got these strappy things that
kind of like,
yes,
although your costume looks better than this.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but
it already looks
what you're used to is that like strappy kind of robe thing that kind of hangs over in a belt that holds in the middle, or if you're Anakin and you've got like the same sort of shirt, and then you've got these two straps that like hang down right here, like he has got these leather strap things. So making those was interesting because I made mine based off the High Republic, and a lot of the stuff that's in like these books, you can see like his character has the two strappy things, but you see like this character doesn't, and neither does this one has one, but they connect in the middle. And so what I wanted to make is something that was like a V shape that connected in the middle, in the front and in the back. And so I had to design a pattern. And I'd never done pattern drafting before, but I taught myself how to do pattern drafting. And I drafted like the first part of the pattern that came down like an angle and then went straight down. But then the other part of the pattern was a smaller piece that went from here just to the middle, and they get sewn together. So it's not two full pieces. It's like one piece that's an angle, because I only needed, they're duplicates on both. It's the same on both sides. So that was tough to figure out. I had to remake that 3 or 4 times. And I did that way because when I first made the just individual straps, I'm like, cool, I'll make them this wide. Then I put them on and they hang too far down. I'm like, okay, shoot. Or I make them too narrow. Or by the time I sew them, the overlap is too much and they're the wrong size. Or then you wash them or go to iron them and they bunch up and shrink and they don't work right. And it took a couple attempts and about 10 yards of fabric before I finally got what I wanted, but I'm pretty content with it. And I actually had a compliment from somebody we know at work who does a lot of sewing and costume making for her family, who said, that's your first time making this? She was like, you did a great job. I'm like, yeah, there's some mistakes. She's like, yeah, but for your first time ever doing it, this came out really nice. I'm like, you know what? Yes, it came out as good as I could have hoped for. The wrist stuff and the hand stuff has all been tricky because it's all foam. I wanted to make it with a 3D printer, and I ordered a 3D printer like a month and a half ago. It is just now getting delivered today, but it got stuck in customs for like the last 2.5, 3 weeks. Or like the whole batch for the US was stuck in customs until just now. So I had to make these out of EVA foam, which is fine, but that took its own learning because you had to get a heat gun to warm it up, to bend it the way you want, and then how you strap it. And it's fun though.
Say, like, it's awesome. Jeff, we've talked about this, and I feel like this is a very Star Warsian feel. But and it's funny because I'm like writing like a mentor series right now, like lessons that I've learned from my mentor and from my mentors over the years. And one of the things though that to your point about building the costume and kind of learning as you go, is that I always loved when people would talk about like, oh, the so-and-so is an old soul. Almost like they were born with all this special knowledge. And I always felt like, man, like I wish I was just, this stuff would just come gifted to me. That I could just, sew or anything else. And a number of different skills. And I'm really thinking that, and I love how you're embracing this, which is that journey of learning has actually a tremendous amount of value, which is like being able to build that skill up over time and even reflect on like, oh yeah, look how far I've come. I really think that that's like such a cool idea that even like this is your first time doing it. Well, of course it's your first time. So I mean, you've done incredibly well, but you're gonna be 5 years from now and there's going to be the Jeff Bull line of cosplay, and Jeff Bull will be at the Met Gala.
Right.
So I mean, you never know how that.
These are today's modern day flowing Jedi robes. For the elegant Jedi in all of us.
100%. I will take that over the Jared Leto cat that I saw, which was terrifying.
No, I would go much.
Gigantic cat.
I'll partner with Pedro Pascal because his outfit, like, hey, dude, you nailed it. The shorts and that was fantastic. Yeah.
Speaking of which, oh, please.
Oh, I was gonna say it's interesting. I've wanted for years to like actually have hobbies. I think we've talked about this on the show before. Like to actively have like a real hobby that isn't just, I don't know, reading Star Wars comics or reading Star Wars books. Something that is like I get to do something with my hands, which is why I started woodworking. I haven't done that in a bit because I've been into sewing and they don't cross too well in the garage when there's sawdust and fabric. But in any case, it's interesting because one of the things I found is really relaxing for me, and I don't know why this is the case, but I came across randomly on YouTube videos of people making bespoke suits, like handmade suits for a person. And I don't want that. I don't want to wear a suit. I don't want to buy a bespoke suit. Like I don't have no interest in that. But I love watching the craft of somebody designing stuff and then watching how they draft. And I don't know why, it just got really interesting to me to see how that worked. There were some companies that do handmade leather jackets and to understand how that all works. And it was just really, really cool. And so that's what sort of inspired me. Like after a while, when I was like, I had seen a lot of the drafting and sewing, I'm like, I think I can probably do this. So when I got a sewing machine, I watched a couple of videos on how to use it. Yes, it took practice and to do anything other than just straight lines and even to feed it and all that stuff. But it's been kind of nice because at least for somebody like me who's got some neurodivergency things going on, it's hard for me to focus on any one thing. But with like woodworking, like with a table saw is a good example, or with a sewing machine, it's not a good idea to not focus on the one thing that's right in front of you if you're going to do one of those activities. And so it's like actually like fantastic practice for me at focusing on something. And it's kind of nice. Put a little music on and just do this for a little bit. And it's become like a meditation. Yet, at the end of it, I have something that I can, like, it's not just, well, I worked on this for a few minutes and it's done. Like, when I'm done, I get to put this thing on and wear it. And it's not just cheap. I could wear it multiple times. And it holds up. It's real fabric and real things. It's not, something off the rack, which is, I don't know, it feels good when it's yours. And even more so when you can help bring some joy to some other people with it. Like,
that's right.
Going to Free Comic Book Day this weekend, our local shop, like a lot of places, people will come and cosplay and like kind of entertain people in line. And I talked to the owner recently, and he said, "Yes, come on down, make your own hours. Come on down, help us entertain kids and families that are here by taking pictures."
So great.
I'm like, you know what? Yes, I want to do that. So.
Yeah, there's going to be R2 at my local comic book store. And Jeff, this is a special episode that we're doing, I think, as everybody knows. I see Rich is here.
Rich!
May the 4th be with you, Rich. It's been a while, my friend.
May the 4th be with you, buddy.
We're thankful to have everybody with us today, especially on May the 4th. And again, it's a very special episode for us to try to sneak in something here. But you brought up two things. One, if you haven't participated in Free Comic Book Day, please do that. And Jeff, I think you could probably give us more details on exactly how. Every comic book store is typically going to have like some really cool item that's going on. Mine is going to have an appearance by our local R2D2. So very excited about that. But there's another thing. Jeff recently gifted me a host of really amazing Star Wars comic books. And it has really like got me back into reading Star Wars comic books. And it's so great. I think especially now, like a very common habit that I think everybody's fallen into is a little bit of doom scrolling, getting on your phone, finding out something is, man, this is terrible. Instead, it's been great to kind of like be reading these. And Jeff, I will say that I have a recommendation back to you and everybody, which is there is this new Darth Vader comic book called I believe it's Red, White, and Black, or Black, White, and Red. And the number one issue, the number one issue is out right now. Black, White, Red. And it is so good, as you could imagine. The entire comic book is black, white, and red, which gives that sense of that. It definitely leans into that kind of fascist look of things. But oh my gosh, their use of red their use of red is so good. I read that. I read the comic book and then read it again. It's got a series of vignettes in it. Um, it is so good, and it is a great. It's a great set of stories, and yeah, you can see it right there. They are very deliberate in how they use black, white, and red, and
Here, I'll
oh my
unmute myself.
gosh, I
Look at me;
I
it's just
really enjoy
gorgeous.
it.
I love
Yeah,
this. I haven't. I
really,
actually
really
haven't read
great
it yet.
artwork.
I just picked it up here the
Yeah,
other day. I haven't read it yet. It's been on the top of my TBR.
yeah,
And
all of the
everybody at the shop
vignettes are
said,
great.
like, even the people at the shop that I go to that don't typically read Star Wars comics, or at least not religiously, all of them said it is fantastic. Pick it up, read it. So yeah, if you are not, even if you're not big into comics, pick up this issue from your local shop. Just go get it.
Yeah, it's solid, and each of the you don't even need to know the backstory of any of the characters that are going on. You kind of just jump right into some things, but it's really great, and I'm usually inspired to buy comic books by the artwork, and the artwork on that, the cover of that is so great. And then again, like I liked the whole trope of how they were building that out. So yeah, it's really cool. But Jeff, maybe you can share a little bit more too, because May the 4th is happening today. Because Free Comic Book Day is coming up. If you want to get into Star Wars comics, I can't think of a better opportunity to do that than
100%.
now.
100%. So before I talk at all about Star Wars or Comic Book Day, because it's fantastic and I will get into it. First, though, because you brought it up, how did you? Two things. One, how did you like the books I gave you? And
Oh,
two, do you have any close by to show everybody? Because I'm very curious what your thoughts about those books actually was.
it's funny. I actually your comic books are over on the other side of my office, and I was like super inspired reading your comic books, and so I enjoyed it. I'm now like into the High Republic, but Jeff, you did something else, which is I like haven't been buying comics for a while, and Jeff comes all the way to Sacramento, brings the comics, and then in a little red bag. And I sit down, and over the weekend, I started reading them. And I was like, why did I stop doing this? Jeff, I went and I bought this many comic books. So many comic books.
Tell your wife
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
I
I
like,
apologize.
yeah, what happened is that I got like
You're
super
like
into this.
so honey. What happened was
So, well, I had to. So my present shop didn't have the run that I wanted, which was basically all the kind of leading up to the High Republic story that I had just gotten into, and so I had to order a lot of that off of Amazon, and then I pretty much bought like every other Star Wars comic book that they had. I also found this one, which I've never heard of this. Um, uh, this is a yes, thank you. I again another example of I bought it for the artwork because I saw this and I was like, oh dang. And so I was all about this. Like, see here, you see this panel right here?
uh
Like
huh.
that's the kind of panel that I'm gonna get sucked right into. So Jeff, you did this thing which was like you like broke the dam, and now I'm just like, oh, I've gotta buy like a ton of comic books. And so yeah, I walked out with one, two, three, four, five, six, seven comic books. And then I even went and like bought a Doctor Strange comic book because I was all about it, Jeff. You really got me back into it. So I
I'm
thank
glad
you
I could
for your
help you.
gift. Although
You're welcome.
my wife might point out that with our bank account I have I've gone overboard. So yeah, it's
Dude, if it
I just
helps at all, you don't feel too bad. So this is just the last 2 weeks TBR that I haven't caught up on yet that I picked up. That's this stack right here. But
oh,
I
that's
can't pan the
awesome.
camera or else I'd show you. This is from the last like 3 weeks I haven't read yet. And
Yeah,
then and then
I got so
the
wrapped up
worst
that
is
I was like,
Ryan, the worst is I have two
oh.
boxes sitting here like this that I haven't read yet either.
So I'll be honest with you. The other side of this is I used to have like a regular pull list. Like I used to have a pull list that I would go and pick up, and then I got behind on it. And again,
Yeah.
this is what I mean is that I hadn't been reading comic books for a while, and then you bringing me comic books was like, I'll sit down and read this. Like, I'll just get into it. I'll see what I like.
Hmm.
And it was funny too because there were characters in the High Republic that I was like, oh, this is Jeff's talking about this. And but the thing that really happened is I found myself like enmeshed in like, oh, I love this artwork. I think
Yeah.
that was the thing, honestly, Jeff, that I'd been separated from, is that it was comic books do this thing where they'll tell a story. They'll tell it usually rather quickly, but they'll tell you a story. And I was like, oh, well, there's all this other consumption that I'm doing right now.
Hmm.
And like Picard season 3, Rich. And the thing that I really enjoyed was I forgot like the slowness of comic books, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
The time that's put into the artwork. By the way, like Marvel has brought in some amazing artists. Like I just found myself really wrapped up in it. And I think that, by the way, like I've been looking at a lot of AI driven artwork lately. Like there's Star Wars by Wes Anderson. There's like a little trailer of that
Oh yes,
on
that
YouTube.
trend is. So there's a trend all over TikTok right now, and it's probably other places too. But there's a trend all over TikTok, and I don't know which one came first, the one you saw on YouTube or the TikTok one. But it's basically like, oh, you're traveling, don't make this a Wes Anderson film, and then the people
Oh
are like
well,
filming themselves in wherever they're at as if they're a Wes Anderson film. But I don't know if that
yeah.
came from. I don't know if that came from the YouTube video that you're talking, the Star Wars one, or if it's a chicken and egg thing.
No,
But
it's inspired by that. It was developed 6 days ago by Curious Refugee. I had to mute this because ads started playing. But
yes, it
yeah,
is
it's
so
Wes
good.
Anderson. It's a Wes Anderson Star Wars, which I just
It's so good.
hilarious. And I really enjoyed watching that. And so my point is that I love all of the careful work. Yeah, all this AI work has been great to see, but I love all the careful work of humans building these things, of humans designing and building these comic book stories. Like I get the fascination with how
Hmm.
AI can generate all these things, but I don't ever want to take away like AI is only an extension of us. We're
Right.
the ones that can conceive creatively,
It's a
as it said on Camino.
Yep.
That is the value of the clone army, is that that clones can see, that clones can think. And I as much as it's great to see all of this droid developed, AI developed artwork, I still rely so much on, and I still enjoy so much seeing like these comic book panels.
Yeah. It's and to touch into the AI stuff for a second, for me, I'm with you. It's a whenever AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is what when people think of AI, the scary AI, what they
Mm.
think of like AI that actually thinks for itself somehow, actual AGI, which is called the pseudo technical term would be AGI, artificial general intelligence. Um, it's sure that's probably not that far off realistically, but for all practical purposes, and I think for the reality for most people is it's an augmentation. It's an augmentation of us as people. And I think for creatives, it is a useful tool. It's a very useful tool to augment what you already do and make something very interesting and save yourself a lot of time and just kind of iterate through changes very quickly. But I'm with you that it shouldn't. I don't want it to ever take the human out of the loop because humans are what make things beautiful and interesting. But hey, if you can augment your time and be more efficient in your time by producing things quicker, and you are already a subject matter expert in writing comic book stories or creating that art, and you know how to prompt an AI to produce the thing you really want it to produce, and then you can edit it and tweak it from there. Absolutely, go do that. Like make that more of a thing. And yeah, that's why I threw that thing up from Rich. I know I'm getting off to target there, but so yes, that's what something I've been loving about comics, especially the High Republic, is they're able to tell a whole other set of stories in ways that we haven't seen before. As a matter of fact, and I will not spoil this for anybody. I will not throw up my spoilers thing, but this book specifically, or this series, in it you see there at the very top where it says an escape from no space. That is a High Republic reference. So if you haven't read the High Republic yet, parts of this you'll be like, ooh, this no space thing, blah blah blah, and where this story physically takes place. It is a High Republic reference, and not just a small reference. It is a major reference to a group in the High Republic that we meet. That anyway, there's high relevance. So something I'm loving about the current run of all the Star Wars comics is that in even the not only in the comics, but I've been playing Jedi Survivor. By the way, I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Jedi Survivor is. Oh, you're muted, Ryan. Jedi Survivor has. I loved Jedi Fallen Order. I wasn't even sure how they could make Jedi Fallen Order even better, and they found a way, so many ways. And I am absolutely loving all of the High Republic that is in it, but without being something that is artificial in the story. Like what they do in it makes sense in the story that they are telling. But it's so wonderful to see all these crossovers. They're basically bringing High Republic as a history of canon into modern Star Wars stories in ways that actually make sense for those stories. And I really love how they're doing it. But yeah, this story is fantastic. To your point about the art in the High Republic books and in other comics, it's beautiful. I actually just got the latest young adult novel for the High Republic. Literally just came in today. It was due today. It's called Path of Vengeance. And the art on the front of this is just, it's disturbing and scary and really cool. And it's a lot of the art on even the print books has been like this, where they're putting a lot of attention to detail into this art representing what's actually in the story to help with that visual storytelling, how helpful that is.
No, I agree with you. And there's all of these little Easter eggs for things. And I'll give an example is that, and I didn't know this, that in the comic books, there's a comic book right now in I think it's the Star Wars General. And I think it also then lends into the Dr. Aphra comic books. And if I'm right, it's happening right now in the comic book run, which is Luke Skywalker has a yellow lightsaber. And when I saw that, my first thought is it's a lightsaber he's utilizing. My first thought is like, oh, that's really funny that Luke Skywalker is using this yellow lightsaber because this guy right here, when if you bought him back in 1977, he has a yellow lightsaber. Because that's how they built them. They could only have so many colors in the run, and so the only available colors were yellow, this kind of white color, and then brown. That's why his eyes are brown. And yeah, he has a yellow lightsaber, and I thought, oh wow, that's a really funny little callback. And of course, Rey has her yellow lightsaber. Yeah. Spoilers for Rise of Skywalker. But yeah, I really like the current comic book run. And if there's a thing on May the 4th, I know that there's so many things that we could talk about. We could talk about all of the television shows that are going on right now. We could talk about all of the really cool bits of videos that you can go out there and find. But I have to say, and thank you to Jeff for bringing me back into this. If you haven't stopped by your local comic book store, today is a great day for that.
It is really a good day for that.
Yeah.
You're real quick, and then I'll get back to the topic of Free Comic Book Day. To your point about the variation in art, I pulled up a couple of things that are sitting in my stack here. I already showed the Vader red, white, and black.
Yeah.
Or black, white, and red. This is part of the Yoda run that has been happening, which has been kind of interesting, and you can see
I
kind of almost
some of the Yoda comic books.
They're really good
because of the artwork. Yeah,
they are.
It was
the stories are fantastic, and the art is beautiful. This is the Hidden Empire. Really, that is the Hidden Empire. That's part of the Red Dawn kind of stuff that's been going on, or not Red Dawn, Crimson
Dawn.
This is the final, but there's a different style of kind of traditional action-y drawing there, and then Star Wars The High Republic Adventures is this whole other kind of style. So it's like everything is getting their own stylistic impressions, and it makes, not only is the story different, but how they look is different, and it gives you different feelings. So to your point, today is a great day to get in comics, and as much this weekend is a great time. So about, God, I don't even know how long ago this was. Free Comic Book Day started. When did it start? Let's take a look. I'll have to go look through the interwebs. I don't actually know. When did Free Comic Free Comic Book Day. Let's take a look here.
I mean, it's been around for a while.
Oh, years. Yes, a very long time. The event was proposed in August of 2001, and the first one launched in 2002. But let me actually share this with all of you. Here, can I see if I can share? Let me bring this up. Okay. Oh, let me get your video back. Sorry.
Make sure it's okay.
See your video. Okay, so Free Comic Book Day. Let me zoom this in just a little bit. So here's something that's interesting for everybody. It's now kind of International Free Comic Book Day. You can find it in most places in the world. Not every comic book store participates, so just fair warning. And it's okay. They don't need to participate. Don't feel like it's a not inclusive thing. There's a lot of effort and time that goes into planning these sort of activities. But for places that do participate, the way that it generally works is a comic book publishing companies have pre-decide a set of comic books they are going to release as free comics. They are made for Free Comic Book Day, and oftentimes they come as a book, and in that book will be like 2 different stories. So you get like 2 different stories in one. They're made for Free Comic Book Day, and most shops, like my local shop, Flying Colors, as is probably not listed here, but Joe Field, the person who helped create Free Comic Book Day right here, created and owns Flying Colors Comics right down the street from my house, and that's the place I go to. And they usually have about 10 different books, and typically you can go in and they give you get to choose from like 3 or 4 of them for each person. And there's like 10 different books. You get to pick whichever ones you want, but you get like 3. Everyone gets it. You get a bag. They give you your 3 comics. And in this place, you always move around to the next station where they have some well-known artists or authors, and they'll sign their books. They'll give you other books that they will sign. It's completely family friendly. Everything is free. There's no obligation to purchase. You just go to your local comic shop. They're usually having some kinds of cool activities. You wait in a bit of line. Right. You come in. You get your free comics, and you just get to interact with a community of people you may not be around a whole lot. It is absolutely the best way to get yourself into comics if you're not used to it. Just go down and pick some up from the cool art on the front. Sometimes there's ones that are individual runs that are like meant for cultural release. That I picked something up that was a Japanese artist that was all about trying to tell the story of past history with nuclear war and things like that. But it was all like a sea creature sort of motif. And it was really interesting, just a way to tell a real human story. Beautiful comics. Definitely check it out. It's on May 6th. So it'll be this weekend, this Saturday. It was really interesting. My wife actually is the one who found this, that Joe Field, who came up with the idea. This is at a time when comic books in general were having a huge slump, and he was trying to figure out how to help get people back into his shop. And he had this idea, went to the people that he knew. They're like, "This is a great idea. Let's put some things together," and it exploded. And so shops everywhere have adopted this. I would say absolutely, if you can go visit your local comic book shop or give them a call and say, "Hey, are you participating?" Please go down and check it out. It is a great way to just experience a new community of people and books and stories. It's absolutely amazing.
No, I think it's a great recommendation. It's a great way, especially if you're a fan of our show and a fan of Star Wars. It's a great way to like keep an interest running, and also consume it in a very different way. Comic books kind of help. Comic books help give you a visual language of a story, but you're still filling in. You're still doing the work up here. And so it's a lot of fun. And I would also say that there's a lot of really great comic book adaptations of things, and comic books for things that you might not even realize have comic books built for them. So if you're like excited about the Dune trailer, trust me, they're going to find Dune related comic books out there.
That Dune trailer. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah,
sorry.
Man,
sidetrack. Anybody who hasn't watched it yet, as soon as this show is over, go back.
Yes.
Yeah, go onto YouTube, stay on YouTube, and go look up the new Dune trailer. It is fantastic looking.
Yeah, it's funny how I was, so many things are inspired by so many things, and you watch that Dune trailer, and at times it can almost seem like it's a derivative, like it's built from something else, when Dune is one of the original inspirations of a lot of modern science fiction and fantasy today, from Star Wars to even Game of Thrones. Like if you don't see how Jon Snow and Paul Atreides are of a similar similar line,
Mm-hmm.
just like Paul Atreides and Luke Skywalker. So many of those stories are based off of Dune, and Dune it's also a really great time now. If you haven't yet picked up maybe a copy of Dune, Dune is more than a David Lynch movie from the 80s with
100%.
an amazing soundtrack by Toto. Um, uh, uh, but but it is a really great it is a really great story, and there's a lot of politics in Dune that is often left out
Yes.
of the movies. Even that Sci-Fi Channel adaptation that happened in like the early 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
like there's so much politics. Like they realize how they're using things like faith and religion and messiahs as a means of which for control. It's a really great story. Denis Villeneuve has done an amazing job, and if you really want to see what can be done with like a visual storyteller, check out that Dune trailer. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
It is.
But we are coming up to the end of our show here, and I thought, I know we wanted to talk about two things, and there's one that's a surprise that I'm about to
Actually,
surprise
hold on.
Jeff
Sorry,
with.
I'm gonna hold
Oh,
on one
please.
sec. I just want to real quick. I couldn't get to it fast enough before we switched off of Dune. For anybody that is curious and wants to get some, the books are amazing. If you want to get,
Books are good.
in my opinion, a really fantastic background and history on the universe or the world building of the kind of the Dune universe, or what they call the known universe in Dune. If
Yes.
you want to get really good background, one of my favorite channels to watch is it's a YouTube channel called Nerd Cookies, and
Yes.
the person, they do an amazing job of making these vignette videos. They're sometimes many 10-15 minutes long, but they do a beautiful job of laying out like the history of House Atreides, the history of House Harkonnen, who are the Sardaukar, and all of these other
Who are
things
the
across
Bene Gesserits?
the Bene
Yes.
Gesserits, and the why don't they allow thinking computers, and why, like, all kinds of things. If you want to know more about the intricacies of the Dune universe, go to YouTube, look up Nerd Cookies, and watch their videos on Dune. They do a lot of other content too, but look at their videos on Dune, and you'll get a really good idea of nuance from all of Frank Herbert's novels. They're fantastic. Anyway, sorry, you had some
So
announcements.
I have, and I'm going to add to that because I'm going to say if you want some really fun homework, read Dune, watch those videos, then go and find a comic book on Free Comic Book Day called The Star Wars, which is actually a comic book interpretation of George Lucas's 1974 original draft of Star Wars. And in that, the Facebook, The Star Wars like way, he ended up dropping the, but you can actually see how much George Lucas is influenced
Mm-hmm.
by Dune in the original. The Star Wars is built. That entire comic book series is almost set in an alternate universe where George Lucas makes his original first draft of what he wanted to tell, and you'll see things like Anakin Starkiller. You'll see a 40-year-old Luke Skywalker who's also part robot, General Luke Skywalker, and you'll also see how he looks a lot like a really buff George Lucas. It's like if George Lucas was just like, I'm getting shred. It is a great thing to do. So watch that Dune trailer. Find 200 hours, read Dune, and then go and check out the Star Wars comic book series. And it is hilarious. If you haven't ever heard of that, by the way, go do a Google search, the Star Wars comics, and it is a hilarious comic book series, and it's legit. Like they're not like making it as a joke, they made it as a real story.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that Padme is from the Padme character, because it's funny because they're interchangeable, Padme and Leia, in that story. And I want to say she's from Utapau. I want to say that is
Oh,
actually
really?
where she is from. Yes.
Okay.
Or Aquiel. It's either Utapau or Aquiel. And Utapau is in there. I think Utapau is the Coruscant of that universe. And so all of those original, you'll see all these little like references to things that George Lucas uses in the prequel series. But anyway, there's two things that I wanted to run at you, as I know that we're coming up on time. One of them is there was some news that was announced at the Star Wars celebration that took place, and it is about a new movie involving the character of Rey.
Mm-hmm.
And I was eager to get your thoughts on that. And then, second, we were going to talk about the Writers Guild strike. I think that it'll probably still be going on into next week. But it's great for us to talk a little bit about how that might affect things like our properties, things that we're looking to see.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe we can start with the Rey movie. That was actually really big news that came out.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. One, because
Yeah,
I love the character of Rey, I really do.
I like the character
Very,
too.
what I'm really excited about is, yes, she's taken on the Skywalker name. I'm excited. I'm hopeful. I'm gonna stay very optimistic. What I'm excited about is that they're gonna give a chance for. Yes, she has the Skywalker name, but she is not. It now. I don't want to say she's not part of the family. She is. I'm excited for them to explore the idea of creating, like, rebuilding the Jedi Order and the struggles that will come from trying to be a teacher and finding yourself, which is what they sort of explored with Luke in the Jedi Academy trilogy way back in the 90s. Um, I'm excited to see that happen with a different character, and I'm hoping they take it in a different kind of direction. I am a little worried, though. It's a small worry, but what I'm a little worried about is if Rey had not taken on the name Skywalker, if this had been sort of a Rey was still kind of a nobody and still succeeded, which would have I think we've talked about this before. I would have actually preferred that over her becoming a
100%
Skywalker.
agree.
No offense to her becoming a Skywalker, but like I kind of
Yeah,
like the fact that she was a nobody. That's a terrible way to say it, but that she was herself
yeah.
and just herself, and she succeeded and was all these things. I would prefer that story personally, but either way, the only leeriness that I have is if they focus too much on the Skywalker name in this new movie. I don't want to see that. Like I want
Yeah.
the classic Skywalker era of stories to be done. This can be something new and have she just happens to be a Skywalker found family. I just don't want them to play too much into that. I want this to be a new thing that doesn't draw too much on past Skywalker threads that we have already, in my opinion, been played completely out. Let's put that to bed. Let's let that go. This can be something totally different. I am hopeful that that is what's going to happen. So I don't want to overjudge something long before it comes out or is even written. That's
Hmm.
my hope. And I am excited. I am really excited to see that it's not even necessarily part of a trilogy, that there might be three movies made, but that's not the
Might be
point.
might be a standalone. I really like
And
that too. In fact,
I
I
would
would push for that.
I'm with you. I really want to see more standalone movies made rather than trilogies. I don't like the
Yes.
idea that we don't have to stick with it. I mean, Marvel has done a great job with not having to have trilogies. Yes, there can be an Avengers 1, Avengers 2, but they don't happen consecutively. They happen after a bunch of other storytelling is done that leads up to a new sort of cataclysmic event where that group has to come together. I like the idea of doing that in Star Wars too, or something very similar where you build up a variety of different stories and they might come to a head or conjoin together TV series, comics, movies into one central event, and then you can move on to the next thing. I like that idea over we've got to stick with a trilogy or a duology every time.
Oh, I mean, I'm almost in favor of. Hey, does that television series need to be a television series? Maybe that's a movie. Maybe that's a standalone
Or
movie.
vice versa. Like, hey,
Uh,
maybe this movie
yeah.
should have been a TV series. You didn't need to force it into 2.5 hours. Make it something they can run
Yes.
over the course of.
Yeah.
Yeah. How
I
about you?
feel like there's a desire from that of that money making machine of Disney where they're like, ah, we gotta like have like we gotta have tons of movies coming out, we gotta have tons of series coming out. It's like actually they've done a thing that I'll use Marvel as an example. They pumped the brakes over there, and that's been
Yes.
great for them. Like they've been slowing down, they've been generating interest in their things, they've been making small little modifications to their storylines. There's a lot of planning that's going on, but they're pumping the brakes, and that's what I feel like Star Wars needs to do. Pump the brakes. It's like we talked already about the our issues with the season 3 of the Mandalorian. It's like just slow down a little bit. Let's get in. Let's let the story lead us first, rather than the oh man, like we could make so much money on a this or that, or like just slow down. I
100%
really
agree.
hope that it's a one movie. I also like you, like the Rey character is one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. And I don't care if you think she's a Mary Sue and anything else. Like, oh, not you, Jeff, but and generally anybody that's
Yeah,
out
yeah.
there. Like, I really like that character, and I think that there's a lot that you can put that character through that would allow them to grow and change and be older. Go for it.
Hmm.
I also think that Rey got the worst of a bad deal in Rise of Skywalker. Also, really weird that Palpatine kind of wins in the end. He's
Yeah.
like, "Look, I'm dying, but my bloodline survives Kenobi's and Skywalker's, so deal with it." Maybe she'll run into Obi-Wan's long lost brother. Who knows? But I hope that doesn't happen. Actually, I just
Mike
realized I
Kenobi.
totally
That's what
sunk
it's gonna
us.
be. Mike Kenobi.
Yeah, exactly. But the what I hope happens in this Rey movie is that they really like. I'm gonna share this really quickly, Jeff. I'm gonna switch to Star Trek. At the end of the
Hold
Star
on,
Trek
Rich. Are you
movies
still
of the
here?
Next Generation,
Rich.
Rich is still here. Rich,
Good.
you're still here for this, right? So at the end of the Star Trek The Next Generation movies, spoilers for all of that, Data's dead. Everyone's depressed, and it's really kind of like demoralizing. It's like, oh man, like this isn't like kind of a cool way to go out. And then we had to wait. That movie came out in like 2002 or something, 2003, and it was miserable for 30 years, for 20 years. We didn't have like a really great end of that story. And finally, with Picard season 3, we got the ending to those characters that we needed. Yeah, could there be spin-offs to that? Could there be? I don't care. We got a really great ending to those characters. What I'm hoping is that we get a great ending for the Rey character.
Yes.
That really, I feel like at the end of Rise of Skywalker, that feels more like a resetting and a rebuilding of that character, of
Hmm.
what that of where you could go. And I don't want to see some type of crazy heist or something else. It's like, give us a telling of a challenge. Like, have that character go out, seek something out, and be changed by it. I think that I am hopeful that what we get in this movie with Rey is an actual ending, a real
Yes.
ending
I
for
agree.
this character.
100% with you on that, especially considering the other two movies that they've talked about. One of them was 25,000 years in the past, at the
Yes,
birth of the Jedi, or the birth of like Force users, which sounds like a fantastic idea. And there was one other
that's
they
a
announced.
Taika
Oh,
Waititi movie.
no, 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 no. That's actually not.
That's not the Taika movie. Oh, I thought
Nope.
that was Taika's movie.
No, there's a different There's a different movie that'll be Taika, but no, there's a I forget the director's name, but there's a different director that I had never heard of before. You probably would recognize. That's the
Wow.
person who's actually taking on the 25,000 years in the past
Oh,
sort of
I really
thing.
like that idea. That's great. Yeah,
Yeah,
do another
I
time.
I like I'm really enjoying this idea that the storytelling can now start to really branch out beyond the Skywalker saga. The High Republic's already happening and is getting interwoven into things. The Acolyte comes out next year, which will be at the kind of somewhat the end of the High Republic, and things will happen there. Um, the High Republic moving into not necessarily the Skywalker saga, but the end of the High Republic into what they kind of the new not or into just the Republic era, or the pre-Empire, whatever you want to call it. But still long before, as far as I know, long before Anakin is actually born, but just what they consider to sort of be the end of the New Republic era time frame. But I'm really liking that they're stitching this all together in that way. And then, you know what? It's okay. We don't have to keep playing that out. We can jump back in time and start exploring much more about the galaxy and other types. You know, we got Skeleton Crew coming out, which will be an Amblin style picture. That's going to be very interesting, taking place in unknown space. There's just a lot of really nuanced world building that is starting to occur that isn't just happening in a TV show or in a movie. It's across the board, which makes this universe, this galaxy, so much more accessible to a wider audience of all ages, because there's a type of thing out there for everybody. The Acolyte is not, I mean, kids can of course watch it because it's going to be this type of property, but it's going to be a very dark and like Andor, it's gonna be a very dark and intense show.
Yeah.
It's not going to be an easy and comfortable thing to watch, unlike a lot of the other Jedi based things that we've had, and very similar to these High Republic books. These books are not easy to read. Like they're not hard literally to read, but the stories are so emotional and so impactful that it's sometimes I read and I have to just put it down because I'm like, I need to take a breath from it, because the intensity of the emotions being conveyed in these stories is so much that sometimes I have to, even especially the audiobooks, I have to just kind of take a break for a little bit. Like, okay, that was a bit much for me right now. It's time to read something else for a little bit. And I love that because it makes this not just casual. It makes this feel like it's something more than that.
Yes, and I think that you really want to have like a story. You want stories. You want these stories to mean something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where you and I, when we've been frustrated in the past with some of the properties, is when the stories don't seem to be telling that like they're doing stuff because the plot tells them to do things. Like, go do this now. And so it's like, oh, why am I doing this? Well, it says on the script to go do that. I think that we're both very excited about this time because there is so much opportunity, but don't squander it. It's like, use it for telling really great stories. And that's I guess the thing that I'm hopeful for, is that we get some really great stories like Andor. Again, Andor, now my favorite Star Wars property, because it is so great in the story that it's trying to tell. It's so purposeful. And I'm not gonna lie, there's not a scene that I would cut. There's no fat on that show. It is really, really great. But I know that we're up at time. But I would say this has been a great May the 4th. I love that we talked so much about comic books.
Yes.
And again, if you haven't yet delved into that world, let this be your invitation. And it's such a great opportunity with, on May 6th, the free comic book day coming up here.
Yep, absolutely. Go do that. There's probably also all kinds of Star Wars trivia things happening in your area around right now. If it's still early in the day for you, we're West Coast time, so it's still kind of early in the afternoon for us. But yeah, May the 4th be with you all. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and hopefully you get out to get some comic books this Saturday.
Yeah, good deal. Hey, bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.